Dax Ren had never seen anything like it. The cold, unfeeling way the alien woman spoke, the silence that filled the room, and the bizarre nature of her request. He was just a cargo hauler he'd been delivering protein packs to alien colonies and making quick runs between stations. But none of those experiences had prepared him for this. A futuristic lab surrounded him, filled with sleek consoles and humming machinery, each more advanced than anything he had ever seen. He felt out of place. Everything around him screamed alien. Yet the woman standing before him wasn't just alien in appearance. She was alien in every sense of the word. Her violet skin shimmered slightly under the light, a smooth, otherworldly hue that seemed to glow from within. Her long, silver-white hair fell around her shoulders like liquid metal, and her silver eyes were fixed on him with an intensity that sent a chill down his spine. "I need you to breed with me," she said, her voice soft but direct, as though she was explaining something trivial. For science, Dax blinked, certain that he had misheard her. What? He was confused. This couldn't be real, could it? "You heard me," she replied, her face unreadable. "Your species is genetically compatible with mine. It's for the survival of my people. You'll help us build a stronger future. You'll provide the necessary DNA to ensure the next generation of Corellians." His mouth went dry, and his thoughts were scattered. "Wait a minute. What do you mean by breed? Are you asking me to ... He couldn't even finish the thought. His mind was racing too fast to keep up with the absurdity of her words. "Yes," she said calmly, as if the answer were obvious. "It's a standard procedure for creating a hybrid species. Few are genetically suitable. Your DNA will benefit the Corellian race, and in return, your name will be forever linked to the Empire." Dax felt a shiver run down his spine. This couldn't be happening. He had come to deliver cargo, not to become part of some strange genetic experiment. This wasn't how any of this was supposed to go. He stepped back, looking around the room. The cold, sterile environment made him feel more trapped by the second. The walls, lined with shining metal and glass, felt suffocating. This wasn't a simple negotiation. He wasn't just a part of some exchange. He was being coerced into something he didn't understand. "No," he said, sharply. "I'm not doing this. I'm just a delivery guy. You've got the wrong person. I don't care about your empire or your experiments. I came here to make a drop, not to get dragged into some ... Marriage contract?" Her eyes didn't flinch. She remained calm, unbothered by his rejection. "You misunderstand. This is not a matter of choice. You have already consented by stepping into our scanner. Your genetic profile was recorded. We have already marked you as compatible. It's a legal matter, not a personal one. You are now a registered contributor to the Corellian project." Dax's mind spun as he absorbed the full meaning of her words. His legs felt weak. He tried to steady himself, but the weight of the situation crashed down on him. He couldn't just walk away. He was caught in the web of their laws, trapped by something he didn't even know existed. "You ... scanned me?" he asked in disbelief. "Without my consent? And now I'm what?" "A prize you're offering to your people." She stepped closer, not to intimidate him, but with the same calculated, emotionless precision that had marked every move so far. "Your presence here means you are already bound. The Corellian Empire has the right to choose genetic contributors. You were selected at random and assessed for compatibility. It's a binding process. The rules are clear." He took a step back, his breathing quickening. "You can't just force me into something like this. There has to be a mistake. You're telling me that if I refuse, this will mean war. A whole empire goes to war over a single human man. The refusal of such an offer is an act of defiance against our genetic expansion program," she explained, her tone still unbothered. "That is unacceptable." Should you reject, you will be placed under tribunal review. It could result in severe punishment. He clenched his fists, feeling the pressure build. This wasn't just about him anymore. It was about something much bigger, something he couldn't control. He was caught in a political game that he didn't even understand. "This is insane," he muttered. "I don't know who you think I am, but I'm not some prize to be claimed." The door to the lab opened silently, and two imposing Corellian guards entered. Their tall, armored figures towered over him, their glowing energy staffs adding to the unsettling atmosphere. Dax could feel their eyes on him, weighing him, judging him. The woman, the alien scientist, raised a hand to signal the guards to step aside. "You will have time to think about your decision," she said, her voice softening slightly, though there was no warmth in it. "But the offer stands. 1 solar cycle to decide. After that, the consequences of refusal will be final." Dax stood there, unable to move, feeling more trapped than ever. He didn't know what to do. He didn't know how to get out of this mess. "Tomorrow we will speak again," she said, turning to leave, her voice echoing as the door slid shut behind her. He was alone in the lab again, the weight of the situation crushing him. He had no idea how he had gotten here, how his life had spiraled out of control so quickly. But now he had to make a choice. And every second he waited, it felt like the walls were closing in on him. Dax stood frozen, staring at the closed door, the words echoing in his mind. 1 solar cycle to decide. What kind of insane ultimatum was that? He had never been part of anything like this, never even imagined such a bizarre, terrifying situation. His mind raced through every possible escape. Could he somehow contact Earth? Could he somehow overpower the Corellian guards? No. His comms were blocked. His ship was still docked, but he was surrounded by a system of alien laws he couldn't even begin to understand. He was trapped. He slumped down on the metallic bench by the wall, rubbing his face with his hands. The cold, smooth surface under him felt like it was draining all his energy. The weight of what was happening pressed down on him more with every passing second. He was a nobody, just a regular human in the vastness of space. He wasn't even supposed to be in this situation. He was supposed to deliver the cargo, get paid, and move on to the next stop. But now he was stuck in a deal he didn't make. The Corellian Empire was real, and its laws were real. They had marked him, chosen him, and now he was bound by them. The door slid open again, and Dax didn't need to look up to know it was her. The same calm, emotionless expression. The same violet skin and silver eyes that seemed to pierce straight through him. "You have had time to think," she said, her voice colder than before. "What is your decision, Terran?" Dax stood slowly, facing her. His mind was still clouded with confusion and anger. "I don't know what you want from me," he said, his voice rough. "You can't just force me into this. I'm not your property, not some genetic experiment." Her eyes never wavered. "You misunderstand. You are not our property. You are a partner, a contributor. And the bond we share is a vital one. Not just for you, but for all Terrans. We need your species, your strength, your genetics. The future of both our races depends on this union." He shook his head, struggling to grasp her words. "You're not making sense. I'm not a soldier. I'm not some hero. I'm just a guy trying to get by. And now you want to marry me? Because of some genetic test? It is not marriage as. You know it. It is a bond of necessity. The Corellian Empire has been struggling for centuries to strengthen its bloodline. This is how we do it, through bonds formed by science, not tradition. Our empire requires the best of both our races to survive." Dax's chest tightened. "And what if I say no?" She was silent for a moment, and Dax could feel the shift in the air around them. The guards behind her stepped forward, their faces cold and unblinking. He was being surrounded. Slowly, carefully. If you refuse, you will be marked as an enemy of the state. You will be taken before the tribunal, where your future will be decided. Your species will be considered hostile. And the consequences of that, ... She trailed off, as if the words themselves were too horrible to say. His stomach churned. He had read stories about oppressive empires in books, but this felt different. This wasn't fiction. This was real. I didn't ask for this, he muttered, feeling defeated. I just wanted to do my job. I understand your confusion, Terran. I truly do. But you must understand, we did not choose this. We were forced into this situation long ago. The survival of the Chiralian race depends on this. We must do what is necessary. Dax clenched his fists, his mind in turmoil. This wasn't a choice he had ever thought he'd have to make. He didn't want to be part of some empire's plan. He didn't want to be anyone's husband, not in a way that felt so ... cold. But what were his options? Was there a way out of this? Her eyes narrowed, watching him carefully. You still have time to decide. But know this, Terran. Your decision will affect more than just your future. It will affect the future of your people. I know, he replied, his voice a mix of frustration and resignation. I don't have much of a choice, do I? You always have a choice, she said, her voice softer now. But some choices come with consequences. Dax stared at her, his mind heavy. With the weight of her words, there was no easy way out of this. He could refuse, face the tribunal, and risk everything: his life, the lives of those he cared about, and even his entire species. Or he could accept, live with the consequences, and somehow try to navigate his way through a reality that had just been thrust upon him. You'll need to make your choice soon, she said, her tone final. The Chiralian Empire does not wait for anyone. Time is running out. The door closed behind her, leaving him alone once more. Dax stood still in the cold, dimly lit room, trying to gather his thoughts. He was caught between a rock and a hard place. The future of his species, the future of his very existence, was now tied to this alien empire and its demands. He couldn't turn back. There was no going back. But what kind of future was he agreeing to? And would he ever find a way to escape it? The clock was ticking. Dax lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling, the soft hum of the alien station vibrating through the walls. He couldn't sleep. Not after everything that had happened. His thoughts kept spiraling back to the cold, emotionless woman who had called herself Commander Sorrel. She was a scientist, a soldier, and yet, in her eyes, he was just another tool and object to be used for a greater purpose. The Chiralian Empire wanted him, wanted his DNA, his genetic material, for a project he hadn't asked to be part of. And now, whether he liked it or not, they were trying to make him part of their future. One way or another, he was a prisoner. A prisoner in a golden cage, surrounded by advanced technology, powerful alien laws, and an empire that would not let him go. There was a soft chime at the door, and he jumped up, his heart racing. He didn't know if it was Sorrel or the guards. Again, but he wasn't ready to face either one of them. He walked over to the door and pressed the panel to open it. To his surprise, it wasn't Sorrel. Instead, it was a Chiralian guard, a tall, imposing figure in dark armor, carrying a datapad. He didn't say a word, just stood there, watching Dax. I'm not in the mood for company, Dax said, trying to sound confident, even though he felt anything but. The guard didn't respond. He stepped aside and motioned for Dax to follow him. Commander Sorrel's orders. You are to come with me. Dax stared at him, his mind spinning. Why? What's going on now? The commander wishes to speak with you, It's time for your decision. Dax groaned, running a hand through his hair. He had hoped for a few more hours of peace to figure this out, but now it seemed that time had run out. The Empire wasn't going to let him hide. They wanted answers. He followed the guard down the long, sterile corridor, the walls lined with glowing panels and strange symbols he couldn't read. It felt like a dream or a nightmare. Nothing in his life had prepared him for this. He wasn't cut out for intergalactic diplomacy or genetic partnerships. He was just a human, stuck in a mess that was too big to escape from. They reached a large, transparent door at the end of the hall. The guard pressed a panel beside it, and the door slid open with a soft hiss. Inside, Sorel stood waiting. She was at the center of a large room. A holographic display showing glowing strands of DNA and complex equations floating around her. Her expression was the same as always, cold, calculating, professional. Dax stepped inside, his mind still racing. "I'm not sure what you expect from me," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "I don't even know if I'm ready to make this decision." Sorel didn't look at him at first. Her eyes were focused on the holograms, her fingers tapping on a floating console, adjusting the data. "You've had time to think," she said finally, her voice calm. "The decision is not easy, I understand. But you must understand, this is not about you or me. This is about the future of our species, your people and mine." "Yeah, well, that's the problem," Dax said, his frustration mounting. "I didn't sign up for this. You can't just use me like some kind of breeding machine." "I did not ask for your consent at the beginning," Sorel admitted, turning to face him. "But that was because I had no choice. My people are on the brink of extinction. We need your genetics to survive, to continue, to thrive." Dax shook his head. "That's not enough. You don't get to make me a part of your empire just because you need something from me. I'm a person, not a tool. And that's what this bond is about," she said. "You are a partner, not just a donor. Your willingness, your choice to accept the bond, is what will allow us to move forward. It is the most honorable thing you could do for both of our peoples." "I don't feel honored," Dax said bitterly. "I feel used." "You're not used," Sorel replied, her voice softening slightly. "You are valued. Your species is resilient, resourceful, and adaptable. You have strength we do not have. You can help ensure that our species survives." Dax's mind was a whirlwind. Every word she said made sense, but it all felt wrong. He didn't want to be some genetic experiment. He didn't want to be the key to an alien empire's survival. But he also didn't want to see humanity dragged into a war with the Kielian Empire. The thought of that, of millions of lives being caught in the crossfire, made his stomach churn. "I don't know if I can do this," he said, his voice shaking. "I don't know if I can be part of this." Sorel looked at him for a long moment, her silver eyes searching his face. "You do not have to decide today," she said finally. "But understand this, your decision will shape the future of both our peoples. Refuse, and you risk everything. Accept, and you help build something new." Dax stared at her, his heart heavy with the weight of her words. There was no easy way out. There was no simple answer. But he had to choose. He was standing at the edge of a cliff, and the future of both their species rested on the next step he took. Whatever decision he made, there was no going back. "I'll think about it," Dax said quietly. Sorel nodded, her expression unreadable. "You have one more day." The door closed behind him as he left the room, the weight of her words pressing on him even more. One day, one more day to decide his fate and the fate of his people. Dax stood at the edge of the observation deck, staring out at the endless expanse of stars beyond the Kirlian space station. The light from distant suns flickered like tiny diamonds in the void. beautiful and cold, just like the decision hanging over him, one more day. That's all he had left to make a choice that would change his life forever. He hadn't been able to sleep, hadn't been able to think straight. Every time he closed his eyes, images of Sorel's cold, calculating eyes would flash before him, reminding him of what was at stake. He wasn't just being asked to become part of some alien experiment. He was being asked to bond with her, to become part of the Corellian Empire's future. Whether he liked it or not, his fingers gripped the edge of the railing as he leaned forward. He had no idea what to do. He couldn't just run. Where would he go? The station was locked down. His ship was under Corellian control, and even if he somehow managed to escape, the Empire would come after him. He would be hunted, and his species would be marked as an enemy of the Corellian people. It would start a war, and he wasn't sure humanity was ready for that. The more he thought about it, the more it seemed like there was no way out. Sorel had made it clear that his refusal would bring consequences, not just for him, but for his people as well. It wasn't just about him anymore. It was about the fate of Terrans everywhere. But what if he said yes? What if he agreed to this bond, as she called it? He would be tied to her, tied to their empire. He would become a part of something that wasn't his choice, something that wasn't human. He didn't know if he could live with that. "Are you still out here?" The voice startled him, and he turned to see Sorel stepping through the door behind him. She was as calm as always, her face as unreadable as the rest of her people's. Expressions. "I told you I needed time," Dax said, turning back to face the stars. He didn't want to look at her. He didn't want to face the truth of what was happening. The decision was too big, too overwhelming. "I understand," she said, her voice quiet. "But time is something we do not have. The Corellian Empire cannot wait forever." "I don't need to make a decision now," Dax replied, his voice sharp. "I need more time. To think, to know," she interrupted, her tone becoming more firm. "You have had enough time. You've had a full solar cycle. You've been provided with the facts, the science, the need. The choice is yours, but it must be made now." Dax felt his anger rising. He turned to face her, his fists clenched. "You don't get it. You can't just force someone into this. You're asking me to change everything about who I am, everything about what I believe. You're asking me to join your empire, whether I like it or not, and all for what? Some genetic bond." Sorel's eyes flickered for a moment, as if considering his words. "I am not forcing you, Terran. You're free to make the decision. But you must understand the consequences. If you choose to refuse, it is not just about you and me. It is about the survival of our species, and the survival of yours." "I don't care about your species," Dax said bitterly. "I care about mine. I care about my people. I care about what's right. I have shown you what is right for both our peoples. We have studied your species. We have watched your evolution. You are strong, resilient, adaptable. You can help ensure the future of both our races. It is not just a choice for you, it is a choice for humanity." Dax stepped back, running a hand through his hair. The weight of her words pressed on him like 1,000-ton stone. His mind couldn't take it. The future of humanity. The survival of their people. All of it rested on a decision he wasn't even sure he could make. "And if I don't choose you?" he asked, his voice quieter now, the defiance leaving him. "If I refuse this, what happens?" Sorel didn't answer immediately. She seemed to think for a moment before speaking again. "If you refuse, the consequences will be severe. You will be declared an enemy of the Corellian Empire. You will be marked as hostile, and your people will be treated as such. You will be hunted. War will be inevitable." Dax's heart pounded in his chest. The weight of her words hit him like a hammer. He wasn't just making a personal choice. He was making a choice that could determine the fate of millions of lives. The fate of his people, his species. What was he supposed to do with that? wanted to walk away, to run back to his ship and leave this nightmare behind. But there was no running from the truth. He was trapped in a web, and the threads were closing in. "If I accept," he began, trailing off, unable to finish the thought. What would he be giving up? What would he be becoming? "You will be bound to the Chiralian Empire," she said softly. "But you will be valued. Your contribution will ensure peace and the future of both our peoples. You will have a place among us." The silence between them stretched, heavy and suffocating. Dax turned back to the stars, feeling the weight of the universe pressing down on him. What was he supposed to choose? What was the right thing to do? His thoughts swirled in his head, and all he could do was stare out into the vast emptiness of space. The future, his future, hung in the balance. And he wasn't sure if he had the strength to make the decision. Sorel stepped back, her face unreadable. "The choice is yours, Terran. Make it soon." With that, she turned and walked away, leaving him alone once more. The door slid shut behind her, and Dax stood there in the dark, unsure of what to do next. Dax sat alone in the dark room, his mind a storm of conflicting thoughts. The stars outside his window seemed to mock him, twinkling peacefully as if they weren't part of a universe teetering on the edge of chaos. He had spent the entire day in a haze. Every decision seemed like a trap. Every option felt like a betrayal, whether he chose to stay or leave. There was no way out, no simple path to freedom, no way to escape the future that had been forced upon him. Sorel's words echoed in his head over and over. "The Chiralian Empire cannot wait forever. The choice is yours, Terran. If you refuse, war will come." What was he supposed to do with that? How was he supposed to choose between his personal freedom and the survival of his people, his species? The weight of the universe felt like it was resting on his shoulders. He could refuse. He could stand his ground. He could say no and fight back. But then what? Would humanity be dragged into war with the Chiralian Empire? Would millions of lives be lost because he wouldn't bend to their will? Or he could accept. He could become part of their empire, part of their future. He could save humanity by joining them. But at what cost? His freedom, his identity, his humanity. Could he live with being tied to an alien empire? A species that saw him as nothing more than a tool for their survival. The door to his room slid open, and Dax's head snapped up. He didn't need to look to know who it was. She always came at the same time, her presence filling the space with cold inevitability. "Sorel," she stepped inside, her silver eyes locking onto his with that same emotionless gaze. She said nothing at first, just stood there, waiting. Dax could feel her watching him, as if she could read every thought racing through his head. "I've made my decision," he said, his voice quiet but firm. He couldn't stand the silence any longer. He couldn't keep spinning in circles. He had to make a choice, and it had to be now. Sorel raised an eyebrow, as though she'd been expecting this. "And what is your decision, Terran?" He stood up, pacing the room, his mind still spinning. He needed to make her understand. "You're asking me to give up everything? To become a part of something I don't understand? Something I don't believe in? You're asking me to become your husband in some twisted scientific way? But this isn't just about me. This is about humanity. About the future of my people." She watched him without interruption, her face unreadable. He could feel the tension between them, thick and heavy. Her patience was unnerving, as if she knew exactly what he was going to say next. "I know this isn't easy," she said softly. "But you must understand, this bond is not just about us. It is about the survival of both our species. Without it, there will be no future. There will be no peace. We need you. I need you." Dax turned to face her, his chest tight with emotion. And if I say no, what happens then? Will you destroy my people? Will you declare war on Earth because I don't want to marry you? Because I don't want to be part of this? Refusing is not just about war, she said quietly. It is about the end of the possibility of peace. We have been given no other option. You are our only hope for survival. Dax looked in too, her eyes searching for any sign of hesitation, any trace of doubt. But there was nothing. Just the same cold, determined look she always had. She was driven by something far beyond him, far beyond his own concerns. She wasn't just asking him to be her partner. She was asking him to be the key to the survival of two species. How can you ask me to choose between saving my people and becoming a part of yours? Dax asked, his voice thick with frustration. You're telling me I have to give up everything I know, everything I've fought for to be part of your empire? You're asking me to throw away who I am, who we are. You are not throwing anything away, Sorel said softly. You are contributing. You are building something greater than yourself, something that will ensure the future for both our people. Dax's heart raced. It was too much, too big. His whole life had led him to this point, and now he had to make a decision that would shape everything that came after. He had one choice left, one chance to make this right. He could choose to accept, to become a part of this alien empire, to forge a future that was bigger than his own survival. Or he could refuse and face the consequences, not just for himself, but for his species. The future of humanity rested in his hands. He could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on him, suffocating him. There was no easy way out. There was no simple path to peace. Every option felt like a betrayal. Finally, Dax let out a long breath. His eyes met Sorel's, and for the first time since he'd been brought here, he felt a strange sense of clarity. I'll do it, he said, his voice steady but heavy with the gravity of his decision. I'll accept. Sorel's face remained neutral, but Dax saw a flicker of something in her eyes, a recognition, a shift, as if the choice he had made meant more than just the end of their conversation. Good, she said simply. You will not regret this. Dax wasn't sure if he believed her, but in that moment he knew he had no other choice. The days blurred together after Dax made his decision. The Karelian Empire was relentless, and the moment he had agreed, everything changed. The next day, he found himself standing before a high-ranking official in the Karelian Council. He had been fitted with formal attire on odd combination of human and Karelian designs, a symbolic gesture for the Union. His mind, however, wasn't on the clothes. It was on the gravity of the moment. The official, a tall Karelian with golden markings across his skin, stood before him, his expression stern. You have made the right choice, Terran, he said, his voice carrying the authority of an empire. The union of our two species will bring great things. The future is now in your hands, both as a partner and as a key figure in the genetic alliance. Dax stood silently, still processing everything. The future? He hadn't signed up for a future like this. But as the Empire's laws and customs closed in on him, he realized that there was no turning back, no more second chances. He had sealed his fate the moment he agreed. I understand, Dax said, though the words felt empty coming from his mouth. He didn't feel like a partner. He didn't feel like a key figure. He felt like a pawn in a game he didn't know how to play. What now? Now we celebrate the bond, the official replied. The formal ceremony will take place within the hour. Once completed, you will be officially recognized as part of the Karelian Empire. There will be no distinction between you and our people. You will be bound. Dax's stomach churned. He had heard rumors of such rituals and stories, of races that bound people together for the sake of survival, but he never thought it would happen to him. He wasn't sure if he was ready for what came next. The ceremony was unlike anything he had ever experienced. It wasn't a wedding in the human sense. There were no vows spoken, no emotional promises exchanged. It was a solemn, clinical event. The Corellian elite, including Sorel, stood at the front, watching as he and she were formally bonded. The crowd was silent. Their eyes locked on him as he stood beside her. Her presence was calm, as always. She didn't show emotion, didn't make any attempt to comfort him. But there was something in the way she stood next to him. Something in the way her silver eyes met his that made him feel, for the briefest moment, like he wasn't alone. The ceremony ended with a simple flick of a switch, a symbol of their union appearing in the air above them. It wasn't a ring, it wasn't a promise. It was just a glowing symbol, a mark of his new role in the Empire. The Corellian Empire's power was in its traditions, and now Dax had become part of that tradition, whether he liked it or not. "Your people will know soon," Sorel said, her voice breaking the silence as the ceremony came to an end. "The bond is complete. You are now recognized as part of our empire, and the future of both our species begins here." Dax didn't know how to respond. He was part of something now. Something that stretched far beyond his understanding. Something that wasn't his choice, but something that was bigger than him. He was officially part of the Corellian Empire, a symbol of the union between their two species. But as he looked at the symbol glowing above their heads, he couldn't shake the feeling that he had just signed away more than just his freedom. As the crowd began to disperse, Sorel turned to him, her expression still unreadable. "You made the right choice. I hope you will come to understand why it was necessary." "I don't know," Dax said quietly, his voice thick with uncertainty. "I don't know if I'll ever understand." She nodded. "You will. In time, you will see that what we have done is for the survival of both our races. The Corellian Empire will thrive, and humanity will have its place among us." Dax looked around the room at the faces of the Corellian people, and for the first time since he had agreed to this madness, he felt a sense of finality. The choice had been made, and there was no going back, but the future was still uncertain. He didn't know what was ahead. He didn't know if this union would truly save humanity or if it would eventually destroy it. He didn't know if he would ever be able to look at Sorel without wondering what he had given up in the process. For now, all he could do was take one step forward, into the unknown, bound to an empire that had shaped the future of both their species, a future that had begun with a single decision he had made, a decision he would have to live with for the rest of his life. Months had passed since Dax made the decision that altered his life forever. The weight of that moment still lingered in the back of his mind, but it had faded somewhat as he adapted to the Corellian way of life. They had accepted him some more readily than others, but now he was part of something much larger than himself. He was bound to the Corellian Empire, a symbol of the union between their people and humanity. His role wasn't what he had expected. He had thought he'd be nothing more than a genetic contributor, a tool to further their empire's genetic program. But as time passed, it became clear that his presence was more than just a means to an end. He was becoming a bridge, a representative of Earth in an alien world. The first time Dax walked into the Corellian Council chamber, his stomach turned. The walls were lined with intricate alien symbols, and large holographic projections floated above the assembly. The Corellian leaders were gathered in a circle, their cold eyes watching him carefully. "You are the first Terran to be officially recognized by our people," Sorel had said as she stood beside him, her presence as powerful as ever. "Your union with me symbolizes the beginning of something greater, a future of shared resources and mutual survival." Dax had nodded, but inside, he still wasn't sure. He hadn't felt like a partner. He felt like a tool. He wasn't sure if he could ever shake that feeling, but things had started to change. He had begun to understand the true gravity of his role. He wasn't just there as a breeder, a genetic donor. He had become a symbol, one that the Corellian people and the humans of Earth looked to for a future. His every action carried weight. Every decision he made, every word he spoke, would affect both species, and yet, Dax still couldn't shake the feeling of isolation. He was married to Sorel, yes, but not in the way he had ever imagined. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't even about companionship. It was about survival, politics, and survival in a galaxy full of dangers. The Empire was his home now, but it didn't feel like a home. Sorel had changed too, though it was subtle. She had started to show him respect, though she rarely allowed it to show in public. In private, she was more ... human, more vulnerable. She would ask his opinions, discuss strategy, and sometimes she would even smile. But those moments were fleeting. The weight of their union, their bond, was still too heavy for either of them to bear comfortably. One day, as they stood together on the balcony overlooking the sprawling city below, Dax spoke up. "Do you ever regret this?" Sorel didn't. Look at him. She gazed out at the horizon, where the sun of the Corellian homeworld began to set. "No, I never regret it. Our people needed this, and so did yours." Dax shook his head, looking at her. "What about you? You didn't choose this either. This wasn't the life you wanted, was it?" Sorel finally turned to face him, her eyes softening for a brief moment. "I chose what had to be done, what needed to be done. Our people's survival is more important than my own happiness." Dax studied her carefully. "And what about me? What about my happiness?" Sorel's gaze hardened again. "Your happiness is secondary. Our species must thrive. Together, that is the purpose of our bond." Dax felt the familiar frustration bubble up inside him, but he kept it in check. "I'm not sure I can live like this forever." Sorel didn't answer at first. She simply looked at him, her face unreadable. And then she spoke quietly. "I don't know what will happen in the future either. We must find a way to make this work. For our people, for the future of both our races." For a long time, they stood in silence, watching the stars twinkle in the distance. Dax's heart still ached with uncertainty, but something about Sorel's words stuck with him. They were bound to each other now, not out of love, but out of necessity. Out of survival. "I'll do my best," Dax finally said. I hope I'm doing the right thing." Sorel nodded. "You are. For us both." And as the stars stretched out before them, Dax realized that his future was no longer just his own. He had become part of something greater than himself. Something he didn't fully understand, but something that had the potential to shape the future of humanity and the Corellian Empire. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. He was no longer just a human in the vastness of space. He was a symbol of unity, a key player in a galaxy that was slowly becoming his home, and for better or worse. He was in this for the long haul.